let's talk a little bit about Big George Foreman. I'm very familiar with your work. I've seen you in The Tomorrow War. I've seen you on The Rookie, and your roles that you played before this that I've seen have been
Mhm.
a little bit more physical, you
Mhm.
know, as opposed to taking on a character of someone that actually exists in real life that's a little more spiritual than physical. So having said that, do you think that Mary's attraction to George was a little more spiritual than physical? Because in that first scene where y'all meet each
Hmm.
other, she seems completely unfazed by the fact that, you know, he is who he is.
Yes, and she was. I think yes, her attraction to him was more spiritual. I think it was also emotional. I think aside from the facade that he was trying to put on, she saw through to his heart and that he was really trying to walk this path that he said that he was going to walk. And also, he has this very childlike nature about him, and I think she really appreciated that, and fell in love with that part of him before it became about the physical. I think at some point she probably always thought he was attractive, but what does that mean? You know what I mean? It has to be deeper than that. And as someone who has a very profound spiritual foundation, you definitely got to come harder than just how you look. So she wasn't phased by that. But when she saw his heart and she saw his childlike nature and she really saw that he was dedicated to God, I think that's what got her.
I agree. I agree. Because I that first scene was like, she's like, oh, she is so like, okay, whatever. Just sit.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
That gave me life. It was so funny. And how much did you know about the world of boxing and George Foreman before taking on this role? Because unless you like hardcore, like with your dad or some male figure in your life that you were watching that type of sport with, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I didn't know much about boxing. I come from a martial arts background. I have a black belt in karate, in Shotokan karate. So I have, a bit of a fighting training and but boxing is a whole other thing. I knew very little. I knew he was a two-time heavyweight champion. I knew about the George Foreman grills. I knew he was from Houston, and I knew all of his sons were named George. And that's about it.
How much of your spirituality did you bring into this? Because it sounds like you brought quite a bit to it to make Mary seem authentic as possible.
One of the things that she wanted the most was a family, and she had that. And it was a blessing and a dream of hers. What happens when that dream is now threatened? Him going back to boxing was a threat, and to her dream, to her family. And once God gave her that vision, she couldn't ignore it. So then the question becomes faith versus fear, faith versus doubt. I've been there. We've all been there, right? God's telling me one thing, but my external reality is showing me something different. So what do I do? And I think keeping that inner conflict alive while walking this journey as Mary Joan Foreman was something that was as much necessary to make her this complex human being as it was to the reality of what she was experiencing at that time.
I'm glad you brought up the vision because that was something else. I was like, oh, Miss Thing is having visions.
Honey, she is gifted. She is spiritually gifted.
It's so funny. Did you get an opportunity to speak with her at all before taking on the role or after?
I did not actually. She's a very, very private person, which I completely understand. And she was very adamant about this being Mr. Foreman's story and just, sitting back. So I kind of just watched a 3-minute YouTube video clip that I found, and I must have watched that thing like 600 times. So that's what I really went off to try and capture her essence. I did get a chance to speak with Mr. Foreman, though, about his love for Mary Joan and their relationship and what she was scared of most at that time. So that was great. One thing that I really loved about Mary Joan and that I'm going to walk away with is that she was so authentically herself and was not concerned with what George had going on. As long as he was true to who he said he was and what she sees in him, she's gonna ride or die for him. But also don't get it twisted. if you acting up, she will call you out on it. And I think that's something Mr. Foreman appreciates about her, because she doesn't let him get away with anything.
I would
But
agree.
I honestly just really appreciated the fact that this Mary Joan was not written off as a supportive wife. She was a rock. She was a spiritual guide, a disciplinarian, a nurturer, and she had her own inner conflicts, and it was reflected in the script. I loved that. And that's what made me say yes.
Talk to me about your accent work that you had to do. How intensive was that?
It was pretty intense. I think I only had a
I can
good
tell
like,
by the way you said it. I was like, let me ask her about that real quick.
whew, it was pretty intense. I think I had maybe like 4 or 5 weeks to really pull it together. I had an accent coach, Jerome Butler, who was fantastic. We worked together about 3 times a week for an hour, and then he sent me with homework, and I worked on that accent on my own for about 3 hours a day. And then would like have phone calls with my mom in the accent, and she's a doctor, and there's another doctor in her office. That is from St. Lucia. And so I would talk to her and she'd be like, yeah, you sound good. No, that don't sound right. So that was great. Um, and yeah, and then once I got on set, I never stopped speaking in that accent. So from the moment I stepped foot to the last day of filming, it was straight St. Lucian accent. And I dropped it on the final day of filming, and people were like, wait, hold on. You you know, they thought that I was really from a Caribbean island, so that was great. But it was that intense, and I wanted it to be, because I wanted to honor Miss Mary Joan as much as I could.
That's a testament to you as an actor. You went in full throttle. Talk to me about working with Chris and how intimate that had to be, because you had to, in addition to capturing Mary Joan's essence, you had to bring out the essence of Mr. George through Chris to a
That's
certain
right.
extent, in
Yeah.
addition to him bringing it out himself.
Yeah. Let me just say this. Chris Davis is a star. One of the scenes, the first date scene that Mr. Foreman and Mary Joan have, it's very intimate. And the way that we went about creating that scenario was, while they were setting up camera, we stayed there and we just talked. We talked about life. We talked about everything, as you would on a first date. And it created a very safe and intimate space that allowed us to bring forth whatever it is you see on the movie.
I wanted to talk to you about um, being on set and having the opportunity to work with Academy Award winner Forest Whitaker, because he's legendary.
Legendary. Like, he's big, but not overpowering. His energy fills up that room, but it's a loving energy. And it makes you feel like you can do whatever it is that you're supposed to.
I think that is a perfect way to end. But before I end, I just need to find out when we gonna see you in the Dorothy Dandridge story. I'm just saying they've already done it, but I'm gonna need to see it again with you.
Listen, I would love that. So we already put that in the universe. So God working on it. When God let me know, I'm gonna let you know.
All right, all right. From your mama and her St. Lucian friends, we gonna put that into existence.
Okay, hello. Black women are powerful. We can do it.
You are hilarious. Oh, Jasmine, it was such a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so much for giving me a slice of your time.
Absolutely, and thank you for yours. I appreciate you so much.
Not a problem.